Bob is 9 years old. He has bilateral spastic cerebral palsy, level 3, but that doesn't stop him. He is the most delightful little man. He loves life, always happy, isn't he? Like always, and always has been since he was born, like just lives life to the fullest.
You won't, don't you?
Well, I think life before it was really hard before the surgery. Bob did not sleep well at all. Like we were up maybe 7, 8 times a night with nightmares and pain.
Sleep is probably one of the worst things. He got a lot of the night terrors and stuff like that. That was really hard. Like he would literally scream for half an hour, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and he was very quiet too, wasn't he? Before that, like very quiet.
I think so.
I think he would struggle with the dealing with the pain, but he never, because he was born with that, he never actually expressed that he was in pain.
We did physio OTs every sort of fortnight as much as we can, plus our own stretches and all that thing with Bob. We did do Botox therapy as well in his legs, which we did get relief from, but it was pretty traumatic for Bob, I think, as well.
I feel like that might have made Bob scared of the hospitals and all of that. He had a real fear of doctors.
You're just anxious to start with, so that was hard with any procedure.
Anyone touching him, was really scary for him. So we first heard about SDR surgery was, for Bobby, was when we were actually having Botox, and there was a gentleman in there training a nurse to facilitate the Botox in kids. He said, I think this little fella would be a good candidate for the SDR. So before that, I'd never even heard of it.
No.
Bob was about 3 then. When he mentioned it, then the physios became on board, and it was a very long process.
A few years of going through different stages. They want to make sure, can they do this, can they do that, to suit that, the SDR.
Yeah. Bob was definitely not ready for it at the age where it was first mentioned, and they said it would be in the future. So from then, we did so many videos with physios. They took, measured his legs for like the length and how tight he was and all of that kind of stuff. What he was capable of, what he wasn't capable of, his weight, his height. If things started to change, then he wouldn't be accepted.
And then when you're looking up videos of someone in America and their kids, they're walking from the SDR, they're doing this.
Yeah.
So we were then we got hopeful, thinking, well, is it going to happen? And will it work the same? Or there's a lot of things going on, but it was sort of exciting and scary because you're like, well, it's going to be a big operation. So.
For us, Bobby didn't really have another option unless he was in the chair for his life. So, we kind of looked at it like that and researched it for years, like from the age of 3 until he was 7. And for Bobby, it was kind of, that was the thing that was going to change his life.
Yeah.
Adriana is our daughter. She's actually the 3rd of our children. She's 6 years old. She's got mixed cerebral palsy, so she's got spastic diplegia and a little bit of dystonia. She is probably the funniest little character you've ever met. Wild sense of humour. Yeah. Loves school. Just getting around, moving around with her friends at the playground, moving around her home environment. But I think the biggest impact for us, we can work through all of those things, giving her, multiple mobility aids, was her pain. There would be days where she'd be curled up in a ball in bed and didn't have a great quality of life.
We would do lots of physio, OT. To help with the pain, she'd take a lot of medication and some medication to help her bowels and stuff as well.
She had Botox injections as well.
Yeah, Botox every 3 months.
Yeah, it was pretty strenuous sort of regime to keep up pain to a minimum, and before we had surgery it got to a point where nothing was helping us anymore.
Yeah.
It was pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah. SDR didn't fit in with a treatment plan. It was never really discussed or mentioned until Alana and her background, her field that she works in. Very fortunate that you work in that field, in that background, and interest in research and a lot of research that you did, reading journals and yeah.
Once the process got started, it was fairly simple. They went to SDR clinic, saw the neurologist, saw the orthopaedic surgeon, and then, you got to come back. Got to come back for some assessments. Assessment-wise, it was a couple of days hard on the kids pre-surgery because it's pretty much like intensive physio over a few days, seeing what they can and what they can't do pre-surgery.
Yeah.
The decision to go forward with the surgery was still huge, even though we knew as much as we could know possible. I think even driving down with all the kids in the car, everything packed for 10 weeks in Brisbane, we still had reservations. We were like, is this the right thing to do? It's major. They're opening her spinal cord. We trialled a new medication called gabapentin, which she needed for post-surgery nerve pain. And we saw some good improvements in her mobility and her pain just from that medication. So we definitely had second thoughts, even driving down.
Is this the right decision? Yeah.
I think she was even 3 or 4 weeks post-op and she wasn't back to her normal self. And we were like, have we done the right thing? We were still quite thinking we'd made a mistake.
But
No.
We
definitely didn't make a mistake.
Best decision ever. Best,
Orlando was born with a condition what they call hydrocephalus, so is water in the brain, and that was a contributor to his cerebral palsy. So he was diagnosed with spastic diplegia, so he had what we call spasticity from the waist down. The majority of his spasticity affected his ankles and his feet.
Before school, he didn't know that he didn't realise there was a difference between himself and other children.
He was so conscious of using any type of equipment to help him. So he'd never used a walker. He wouldn't use a walker. He'd prefer to walk with us, hand in hand. And he wouldn't use a wheelchair. He was still little, so we could still carry him. We could get away with that, but that type of mental impact was starting to show around the age of school. During my time of trying to understand cerebral palsy, I spent many nights not sleeping, up reading on what is it that helps treat cerebral palsy. And I came across an article on SDR, and it was very difficult to understand what type of candidate would be the most suitable candidate, considering it's an irreversible type of surgery. One day we went to Rehab to Kids, and we heard a rehabilitation doctor say, and a physiotherapist talk amongst each other saying, oh, he might fit SDR, and as a mum you're like, sorry, what was that? And you kind of jump into that conversation and it went from there.
Yeah, it sent the ball rolling from then on. So. When they started talking about nerves and stuff like that, and cutting through the back, they have to remove muscles and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that was scary. But when you thought of the process and what they were doing and how it would help, it kind of made things a lot easier. We understood enough, and we tried the other interventions, and we thought, this is our last hope, you know, and just to give them that quality of life. If we could try, if we could have tried more, we would have, but we would have. That was our last option.
We had the opportunity of doing a roundtable discussion with the entire medical team, so both in Westmead and Randwick, where Orlando would be cared for. And that was the point of comfort when we met everyone.
To put faces to names, and it was extended family to us, and so they just embraced us. They walked us through every step and explained to us how it would work, what would happen, and where we would go next from there.
Yeah.
And that made life so much easier.
He'd always been so accustomed to being poked, stretched, measured. So when we did the SDR process, in his eyes, he was, oh, this is just something else that, you know, usually happens to me. But I feel like one of the biggest hurdles for us that we had to get, a message that we had to get through to him was, you know, son, you can walk now, but when you wake up, you may not be able to. And that messaging was probably what we tried to just push through, you know, and that was okay.
So Adriana is quite intelligent and she's very clued on to everything in the world, especially her condition. So we discussed exactly what it was, but I think we mostly focused on why we were doing it.
Yeah, to stop your pain.
Yeah.
Well, limit, because we couldn't say that you're going to have no pain because we weren't 100% sure, but...
Her OT at home did a few sessions talking about how she was going to cope post-surgery because there could be more pain than what she's used to. So she was nervous going in, but she was pretty good. She's a very brave kid. Yeah, it was her normal rehab team that greeted her and, you know, took part in it. So it was a comfortable environment for her, I think, too. So she knew what to expect.
Preparation for us leading up to it was pretty hard with Bob, purely because he was an anxious kid, so we knew that if we delve into it too deep, he's going to lose it.
You know, we didn't go into the ins and outs, the descriptive details. We just told him that he's going to have surgery and that it's only going to make him be able to do things like other kids, you know, so... And
that was our way. With some other people, it might be just let it out, the whole thing, but for us, that was the way we sort of had to with Bob.
We did a lot of visits with the team down there and they wanted to build up Bob's confidence and trust in them, and that was
brilliant.
Amazing, because beforehand he wouldn't even want to go in a room with a doctor, let alone a doctor look at him. And
the Children's Hospital could not fault him at all. Like they were brilliant. They bring his confidence back up, actually, didn't they?
Right. And the other thing, Indy came down to every appointment prior to his surgery, and they would go through the hospital, you know, running around, and then when she'd be pushing him and...
Yeah, siblings to help out a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah. To us, Indy was a lifesaver for Bobby, really, yeah. Surgery day was really, really hard, to be honest, because we knew he was going to be in there all day. It was a very long day. I think it was nearly 10 hours that he before we got the call, and we kept thinking, oh gosh, like, you know, surely by lunchtime, surely by 2 o'clock, surely by 3 o'clock it was like tea time, and we went up, we were like, we can't do this, we're just going to wait in the room. So it was really a really bad day waiting for him.
So I suppose the initial call that we got from the doctors was positive. They said everything went well, which took a lot of pressure off us. Yeah,
it was a big relief. When we got to see him in the recovery room, it was really hard because he just looked, you know, he had a big day and he looked exhausted, and but he woke up and he said, "Can I go home now?" So we were like, mate, if only you knew what you had ahead of you.
The hardest bit was over too, which was
the hardest bit was over.
Big relief because you had the healing stage to come, but the operation was done.